And I actually think it's actually not hypocritical. It's not me going, "Hey, I have really high APM, but you don't need high APM to be good." It's me saying, I got APM really I got my APM very, very high because I started to think of all the ways that I could get additional edges here and there. And I had a very, very big mental checklist of stuff I needed to be doing everywhere at once. And that's how it was able to tick up. And interestingly enough, I played. This was back when I hardcored PG Tour. In 2,000 replays on PG Tour, that of course eventually transitioned to Icy Cup. My APM was 310 with almost no deviation. Like my lowest APM was 304 and my highest APM was 316. I mean, it was just like solid in that band. And that's because I had a pretty static mental checklist. It didn't really change. That was the motivation for it. Now, I'm not going to lie. When I first wanted to get high APM, I just spammed to get it high. So that was probably in the 2003 and 4 era. But by 2007, 2008, in that period of time, it was just me having a good mental checklist, and I had a very clean set of actions. Now, of course, again, with the high APM, this was to try to get, like I was saying earlier, really high, super ultra level, is to get from the top 8th percent to like the top 16th percent. I mean, this is the edge we're talking about. But that's just so not necessary. Because, again, Diamond League is probably the top 10% of players. That's gigantic. That's like millions of people. That's tons and tons of players. That's so many. To get into Diamond League and to be playing competently and to be playing well, you just don't need really fast actions per minute. If you wanted to be, say, the highest diamond rated player of all time, I'd probably start saying, okay, yeah, let's sit down and discuss techniques to really up your APM and to have those fast fingers and to really flesh it out. But absolutely, totally don't think so. And honestly, all the motivations that I said here were all the things that are really the core to playing well. Again, that mental checklist. Yeah. So Kisra says, Day 9, as a Zerg player, it's not quite as simple as making a worker every time one is done. What's a good checklist for Zerg players, or is it incredibly situational when making drones? I actually think that's a great example. I did Protoss exclusively on this thing, purely because Shift 1 is the reset hotkey for Protoss, and I'm lazy. Ha! But for Zerg, I actually have a different mental checklist in Starcraft 2. My mental checklist is keep money low, make sure I'm making overlords, and make larva. Constantly make larva, and actually be very aware of the progress of that larva. Because how soon the 4 larvae are popping off will inform when you need to make overlords. So that's like my core when I'm playing Zerg. Am I making larva? Am I making overlords? Am I spending my money? And recently, it's been, am I spreading creep? But even then, I'm still having a little bit of trouble with these 3, so I really am just going to come back and focus on these 3. There's nothing wrong with just ditching the creep expansion and saying, hell, I want my core play to actually be good, so I'm not going to waste it trying to spread my creep while my money goes into the thousands. No, but, over time, yeah, I totally want to throw that in there. And that's really something that would happen quite a bit. Herder says, Dear Day 9, do you think it's important to force yourself to use the control button on the right side for making the 0, 9, 8, and 7 hotkeys? To be honest, I actually have big enough hands that I don't actually need to use the right control hotkey. I actually hit control 0 with my thumb. I do control, bam, swing that thumb. It makes me feel cool. But I actually think that that's great. My brother actually hits the control key with his right thumb and can do it really, really fast. And I actually began adopting that over time because his keyboard control is just very nice on those higher end. But again, exactly what you said. You said, do you think it's important to force yourself to use this control button? I would honestly just say, if you find it really easy to do that control thing at the right, or actually a better way to say it is, if logically that control button at the right should be easier, start doing it. Start doing it no matter what anyone says. I don't care. Whatever you do, don't make a forum post and try to have a discussion about it. Just trust yourself and do it. Too often people ask for permission to do their own hotkey setups when instead they should just do their own hotkey setups. Like, I have a whole lot of weird stuff I didn't even mention in my hotkey setups that just seem insane, but I do it, and it works great for me. That player who had the 1 as scan and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as his units, that worked brilliantly for him. I even know of players, actually Froz, one of my favorite players to reference of all time, used the 0, 9, 8, and 7 hotkeys for his army, and would go 0p, 9p, 8p, 7p. He would use the patrol key to get them to attack, because he could get this nice little bounce with his fingers. Worked great for him, because he's like, what, like a 3-4 time WCG USA champion? I mean, he is really, 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 really good. Oh, okay, so here's a great question by Ryuke 2010. Hi, Day 9. In the mid-late game, I tend to forget to make probes unless I expand. Probably because I think I am saturated. Is it a good idea to do other checklist steps? Or is saturation a good problem? What I would actually say is that, again, is one of those strategy things. I would keep probes in your mental checklist. And the real question is, when do you stop? You'll hear me talk about this a lot with timings. Create an arbitrary point to just do it. You know, so let's say with your build order, you say, you know what? When my gas has been mined to 1,000, I am stopping all pro production. Or my minerals start at 1,500. When my minerals get to 1,250, I'm stopping pro production. Again, notice I didn't use the food. I used whatever was easiest for me. I like timing things based upon how my mineral count's looking. So once I am at 1250 minerals, I'm going to stop making probes. So let's say you just declare that, and it's way too early, like you have 10 probes or something like that. Then you go, okay, well, let me stop making probes at 750 minerals. And let's say that feels great. Then cool, you have a timing for yourself that you can pretty much stick with a little bit naively. And then the way it would work brain-wise is in your mental checklist, you're going make probes, make probes, make probes, make probes, and then you would throw in there, check mineral count, check mineral count, check mineral count, make probes, check mineral count, make probes, check mineral count. And when you hit to 750, shunk, you're no longer making probes, you're no longer checking your mineral count. Easy for breezy. So, yes. Yeah! Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I love this. Day 9, I'm having trouble incorporating Psystorm into my play. It feels so finicky, weak, and too deep into the tech, and I have problems killing Terran balls and Hydra gangs compared to the Colossus. So that was a strategy question. And again, the focus of this was like on mental checklists, a lot of mechanical stuff. But I do think that a lot of times the reason spellcasters feel weak is because they're not being controlled properly. I was noticing that I was losing a lot of High Templar in dumb situations. Because I was just thrown into the Control Group 1, and now I have my Templars Control 3. And I have my Sentries as Control 1, and the rest of my army is Control 2. And that's been working pretty damn well for me. Because I can go like, I can be like pulling my army back, my Control 2 group, and then I can throw force fields around with my Sentries, and then move up with my main army with Control 2, and then my Templar that are at the back that I've been sort of controlling around, then I can move them forward and storm everything between the wall O units. So that I think is something to note. Whenever a lot of your stuff is feeling a little bit weak, see if you can up the control element of it. That I think is pretty essential, because again, the birth of timing and the birth of macro is a direct result of people going, this feels a little bit not good, or doesn't feel like I have a huge edge. How do I force a huge edge? And the answer is APM. Now, here is something interesting. Here's a very interesting question by Jenslin87. Hey, what do you think about health bars? Should they always be on? It seems like you have them only on with selected units. Do you prefer this in live games also? Yeah, that's something interesting that is a new topic I have not fully explored at this stage, because in Brood War, you didn't really have health bars. You just didn't. You couldn't click on things you couldn't see his whole army health. Warcraft 3 players obviously are going to have a lot more comfort and a lot more ease working with the health bars because they were there, but I don't. So I think obviously, the ability to see your opponent's health bars without having to click on his units, is helpful. You will win more micro battles that way. What I do is I actually hold the Alt key during battles a lot, and I have this sort of funky pivot going on with my hand, and that has worked out very well for me. Because to be entirely honest, I have a very hard time parsing battles when health is always on, especially in Protoss vs. Zerg and Terran vs. Zerg. All the health bars are there in like a huge 130 versus 130 food battle, but my brain just sees health bars. It doesn't see units. What I really want to do is, in a battle that's big, I want to be able to see the positioning. I want to see the relationship of the distances between his little pieces of his army, so that way I can just readjust mine a little bit on the fly. Or if there's an infestor there that I need a target fire, I want to be able to clearly see the infestor. And if in this huge battle I need to specifically pick off some